good evening once again, and welcome this time to our first Kaiso Talk program for 2026. It is indeed a pleasure to be back and, of course, to be talking Kaiso. And, we are in Kaiso season. In Grenada, we're getting ready for our Independence Calypso competition. In Trinidad, it's almost Carnival. So, we just came from Legends in Concert, so it's Kaiso, and more Kaiso. All right, and tonight we have a very, very special guest with us, an authority on Kaiso, and we're going to get into all of that just now. But first, let me welcome back Val. Val, welcome back. Happy New Year. It's good to be back and to be talking Kaiso once again.
Yes, welcome Godfrey to the first edition of Talk Kaiso for 2026. Welcome again, or good evening to Grenada, PT Martinique, Cairo, and all where this program is being heard up the Windward Island. It's great to be back and great to be talking Kaiso again. And of course, with the guest in the house, I have very little to say tonight, because he has so much to say, and we want to get all of that. So I'll pass it back to you to introduce him.
Definitely. Well, folks, it is a pleasure to welcome to Kaiso Talk for the very first time Mr. Zeno Constance. He's an authority on Kaiso, and what I'm going to do now is to ask him to tell us a little bit about himself before we get into the real Kaiso Talk. Zeno, good evening. Welcome to Kaiso Talk. It is a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, I'm in the house, so that's a good thing. all the way from South Trinidad, coming across the waters to my second home in a sense, if you're talking Grenada. I've been there about 6-7 times in the last 2 years. So, basically, I was an old presentation college boy. Went to UW St. Augustine, and when I give my bio out, it's very short. I'm a playwright, very successful playwright. Many awards. Plays have been done all over the Caribbean. Yeah, in fact, they have been studied at Cape and CXC, and O levels and A levels, Cape and CXC level. I'm also an author of a couple of books on Calypso. One particularly about Brother Valentino, Grenadian one too. A legend in Trinidad Calypso. And one about the East Indian input into the Trinidad Calypso. I've also been a former lecturer in Calypso history at UW St. Augustine. So that's some credentials, but I'm also, in a sense, an archivist and collector of Calypso. So a historian, yes, collector, archivist, taking the Calypso way back. And just by the way, at the end of this bio, I used to be an international basketball refereeing all through the Caribbean back in the 80s into the early 90s. So that is it. But the real thing tonight is about my Calypso knowledge.
Yes, yeah, but very interesting. Very, very interesting. It's good to hear that. So when you said you came to Grenada about 6 or 7 times, I was about to ask you that's after you left Grenada and go to Trinidad to live.
Actually, I got here in 1989 as a basketball referee for the OECS tournament, and then I didn't return until I think it's 2015 when I bought my school drama group, and then I bought my adult drama group, and so we have been there about 3-4 times. The school twice, the adult group 3 times, and I came myself to talk to students of Grenville Convent about theatre arts.
Nice.
Which is my other aspect, the theatre aspect of me. So I was there up to 2023. No, 2020, 2023, December.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, I don't think we could have had a better guest to open the season of Kaiso Talk. So I am just going to ask you the first question, and then I'll let Val throw some of the other questions. With all that you've done, when did you actually get involved in Calypso, or when did you realize you had that interest for Kaiso?
All right. Well, from all time, from young, different kind of interests. When I was very young, I mean, Calypso was the seasonal music. And so growing up 9, 10, 11, we knew about the soul music of America. And we knew about Calypso when Carnival season. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a problem. There used to be a program on the radio called Saturday Night at the Calypso Tents. Only 30 minutes. I used to devour that program in the preteen and so on. And by the time I get to sixth form, I was very interested in Calypso. I would go to Skinner Park in San Fernando to take in the Calypso Tents when they come.
Right.
It never occurred to me I should get into any other aspect of Calypso except going to listen. I love going to Calypso. I would go every time the tents turn up. And then when I reached UV, St. Augustine, I played fast and decided I would enter the Calypso competition under the grandiose name of Z, the Ultimate. Right. To cut a long story short, a boss. I couldn't. The band going one way, I turned to the next way. They tried to get me. I went on again, boss, same way. And I decided then, I'm going to sing no Calypso. I will write about the Calypso. Uh-huh. And discuss Calypso. And that's how I begin this aspect. I've never, since then, attempted to even try to sing a Calypso. I mean, I would sing little snatches of things.
Yeah,
when I was teaching the Calypso class or teach or lecturing in uni, but going on stage, never do it again. I try writing, and I would a few little things, but not much. And after that, my main thing in Calypso is collecting, archiving, analyzing, talking about Calypso. Because when I was on campus, I met Gordon Rowley, who is perhaps the greatest authority on Calypso from the point of view of the books he has written and the historical facts and so on. Mm-hmm. He became my hero. He died a few years ago. So that's how I get into this Calypso thing, and now I talk Calypso everywhere because I have different. I mean, that's my forte now. Right. Talking about Calypso, writing about Calypso, and I have about 100 articles on Facebook about Calypso. One of these days I was turning into something, something book or something. But that's it, yeah.
Lovely, but this is great. I mean, I love my Kaiso, and Val would tell you that I love my Kaiso. So whenever I come across someone who has that kind of love, I'm very, very excited. I would just sit here and just listen all night. I love it. In Grenada, most people, if they're having a discussion on Kaiso and they get stuck, they would probably call me. I don't think I'm an authority as yourself, but I don't know. I might get there. I do some archiving. I do have quite a bit, but I've never written. I have a lot of information up here, but I've never documented it. What we do is through our shows and so Legends in Concert. I'm sure you may have heard of it.
Yes, I definitely.
Yeah. So this is my part, and then of course, being a broadcaster, I am probably the only person who plays Calypso, throughout. So Calypsonians can actually depend on our network and on me to get their Kaiso out there. because I'm sure you understand how things have changed over the years in terms of the music and the interest and all of that. But Kaiso definitely remains with us. So Val, he mentioned he's also a playwright, and I know you're into that. So I would now let you take the ball and bowl that opening over.
Yeah, we're not here to talk play.
No, I mean I understand that. I'm just saying that the two of you.
Of course, I know Zeno work.
Second emotion. Yeah.
In Trinidad and so on, flight of fantasy from very early, but we're not going there.
Exactly.
Kaiso, and I know that you mentioned your relationship with Gordon Roller, of course, that professor and authority in Calypso. But I know that you, Zeno, Dr. Louis Reggie sprang along, and I can also throw in Leonid Francis, probably the collectors, archivists of Calypso. So I don't want to say too long on that, but that is out there, right? Sprang has gone, Louis Regis has gone. I haven't seen Leonid Francis in years. I don't know whether he's still around.
Yeah, he is there. He's not as active.
No.
He had a little bout of sickness, so he's home in Sobo, South Trinidad. I haven't seen him for a while because he doesn't. He used to be walking everywhere with paper and tapes and distributing Calypso and so on. He doesn't do that again, so he's a little more laid back now. But his contribution, was tremendous.
Yeah, great. So that so I'm aware of that. What is well, not surprising, the fact that the four of you are South people. Gordon is the only one who was living in the East.
Gordon up there.
You're living in Tunapuna, you all are from South, right?
Yeah. In fact, Gordon called us the South Mafia.
Yeah.
but in terms of environment,
Right.
the Southern Mafia.
I think he respected you all, and as everybody respected Zed and all the rest there. So, before the program started, Godfrey was playing Rainorama by Kitchener.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Right, so let's jump into that because, we could talk through Rainorama, lyric, melody, and story, which is really the cornerstone of the Calypso. But there are some people who would not see Rainorama as being lyrical and having, story, yes, but they would play it down in terms of its lyric and its story. So, Professor, tell us about Kitchener, Rainorama, lyric, melody, story, as opposed to the other song that Godfrey played, which is Federation by Sparrow. Yeah? So, break it down for us.
Well, when I was growing up, I was a Sparrow fanatic. And I used to hope that Sparrow would win the road match and win the crown. But as I grow older, I still say Sparrow is the greatest exponent of Calypso ever, because no one has straddled the Calypso world as Sparrow. But it is my opinion now that Kitchener is the greatest lyricist of all time. And when people ask me why I say that, it's not a Kitchener Calypso in which one syllable, one meter, one is out of sync. The music, the lyrics, everything fits perfectly. And I was talking to somebody about that just a few nights ago, and I tell them, I will give you a bly, which is shadow, and rudder, because they're different. Rudder is the closest thing to traditional academic poetry, and shadow was just from some other planet. But Kitchener was that, and in Rainorama, you see Kitchener taking the incident of the postponement of the carnival that year because of, they say it was because of the polio epidemic. What most people thought it was because of the threat of the enough gorillas and the Black Power people, and so on and so on. And Kiss mentioned that in the song. But because it rained, when they postponed that thing to May, and put the mass in May that year, and the rain fell, Kitchener conceived this idea of making a Calypso. The vehicle is rain, it's Rainorama, and playing on the words of Panorama and Blockorama, which is popular then, and so on. But still telling this story of why it is that to move the carnival. So they could say what they want. They say it was the guns and Mom Coco, but blaming polio. And that's a serious thing, because in Sparrow was a calypso called Mass and May, Blakey, as my grandfather say, Melody as polio. All of them mention. I don't think Sparrow did, but Blakey and Melody both mention this unspoken underground rumor that something else was going on. That is the kind of almost clandestine revolution that was taking place. So Kitchener and Kitchener has been able to do that year after year after year. Right? Create from historical circumstances or from things he make up and create these powerful calypsos. Now, and I know now that we're not ever going back to those days because it was special. But in the times, those melodic calypsos are not 13 hours long, and you can get it over in a few minutes and still make the point. So, yeah. Rainorama became big, it became the road march. 1973.
While we are in Kitchener, and you mention what he has done with the Kaiso. So like you, I love Sparrow. But I would listen to Kitchener. Some sweet songs, for the pan and all of that. But there's one particular song that Kitch did, and not a very old one. And when I listened to that song, I had a sort of renewed love for Kitchener and his music. A song called Mystery Band. Let's talk about that song a little bit. Mystery Band.
Well, again, that's one of it. It's not a historical, not historical, but it's a song based on some historical fact, right? It's one of his imaginative songs. And that's the song I think, the Mystery Band in the River.
That's right.
And what he did is create out of these pans and old bucket coming down the river and making noise into a whole steel band symphony kind of thing. Now, the Black Stallion had said, and Black Stallion had lived by Kitchener's house for, I think, 2-3 months. And Black Stallion had made a statement in jest, but, he had said, when Kitchener get up in the morning and brushing his teeth and gargling, you could hear the bees melody. You could hear so you could imagine Kitchener picking up this song of things coming down the river, and he make a whole calypso called the Mystery Band. Right? And that is such a beautiful melody. Kitchener had in that time, I think the 80s into the 90s, he had some melodies that, Chocoban, Bees melody, this is again Panade Minor.
That's right.
The Iron Band, the beautiful melodies. But that's what we have lost in calypso to some extent. But we could talk about it later if you want. But definitely, that was the time. And Kitchener was at the helm of this musicality.
Zed, I want to look at how Kitchener is seen in terms of lyrics, and some people saw him as being less weighty than, let's say, the song that Sparrow sang. So that, one would look at Sparrow's Federation and other songs as saying, yeah, that is like big lyrics, and Kitchener as minor lyrics, so major, minor in that sense. And that view persists and still exists in calypso today.
Yeah,
I want you to give some clarity on that.
All right, that's not a modern view. That's a very old view, and I think it came from the colonial authorities trying to shift the power of the calypso. We know that back in the early part of the 20th century, right, and even before and coming down, there was a considerable effort to de-Africanize the calypso. That's what I want to do. You know, a lot of people talk about, in Trinidad at least, about 1921 Chieftain Railway Douglas and the first commercial calypso tent. I use the word commercial because it was not really the first tent. For a lot of reasons. I mean, the first tents were actually under the tree, and then they went to a building. I think the Chinese people and them. Anyway, but what they forget is that the Chieftain Douglas Calypso tent, what he did was move the drums, African instruments, and put a violin and kind of almost the Africanized and Europeanized the calypso music. No, what I did into the calypso is that they made this thing, and I think it began very early in 1930s. By the time we get to 39 and the competition, they made this thing to say, this is a big calypso, the ones with closer to the English and the English poetry and these topics, and the ones that were obviously the Lego, the African things, the jamming became second class. And that is unfortunate, and I think we're going through that crisis right now, even more so, because over the years we keep saying, this is a big song, this is a song for the Savannah, for the finals, and it's some piece of philosophy, as opposed to like for instance, back in 40s and 50s, a song like Attila's Graf Zeppelin would get more ranks than Blakey's Steel Band Clash.
Right.
And we find that the Steel Band Clash was a big song because it was on the road, and the common man took it and went with it. And over the years, we keep seeing those things where the road march became the second level song just for the road, and not as big a calypso. My opinion is that Portrait of Trinidad by Sniper, which people in Trinidad consider to be one of the greatest, like to say is the greatest calypso ever. I don't agree that, but it's no better than Super Blues Get Something and Rave. They serve two masters. Well, they say one master with two hats. One is the road, one is the celebration, and so on. And my argument is that Super Blues Get Something and Rave is very strong lyrically. But we tend to feel lyric is A, the things that take us closer to the poetry that we learned in school, and B, the question of the story. And I have a problem with this storyline thing because, but that's another argument. Calypso didn't begin with having a 4-verse story. So we can't tie it on there and put it in a pigeonhole and say that is good because you have 4 verses and chorus and must get a story. Not all calypsos are narration and narrative. But that's for another question, I suppose. So that's my answer on the Kitchener Sparrow thing. Sparrow, of course, straddles the calypso world as a performer. And it is my argument that Sparrow could take a calypso that's worth 50-60% and make it 90. So a lot of calypsos that Sparrow make big in anybody else's mouth would have been just worth maybe it's above the mediocre sometimes.
Yes.
He was that good. That's why Calypsonians consider him, the best thing they have ever seen in modern times. I mean, back in the 20s, they used to say the greatest is executor, the one they call the hero. So when Sparrow came, Sparrow surpassed Kitchener because of what he could do to an audience. He could stand up and make them eat out their hands and that kind of ability. And he could also sing the philosophical ones and the body ones and the festival ones and the celebratory ones and so on. He could sing it all.
Right.
Very, very interesting.
Gordon Roller basically pushed the statement, the oratorical calypso, as opposed to, you were just mentioning the Lego comes from the yard and so on. And as you mentioned, so that is out there as being the big, heavy lyric. You mentioned Executor, Lion, I guess, is needs to be mentioned, I guess, and you could tell me about that, because you have those generations of people who laid a particular foundation. I think that even with Kitchener and Pretender being friends, Pretender felt that he was a stronger calypsonian lyrically than Kitchener, You have all that information. Help us.
Yeah, I don't agree, but you could understand Pretender's point of view. Right? Pretender would feel he would feel that the philosophical ones, never ever worry, the virtue of women and so on, would be better than Kitcheners. It would make to walk and those kind of things. But I am saying a calypso is not better because of the theme or because of the topic. I do put a calypso about man's imagination and about the role of the role of women or the role of God in calypso better than the one that talking about do back on me. Because they all play a role. There are calypsonians who never get close to the road march because they're singing a different kind of calypso. You have to give them the dues. But we can't look down on the others. If you go back to Lion, and Lion himself turned topsy-turvy on that. When Lion was in his heyday, he considered Nettie, and Caroline, and those calypsos, but big calypsos. When he get older, he said they were not calypsos again. Right? He taught all those to stay with the 8-line, trying to get this thesis that is a French thing. The 8-line French ballad is really the calypso, right? But Lion was singing extremely good calypsos, whether despite whatever topic, whatever theme, the test of the treatment, and a calypso is good not because it's pigeonhole or streamline this particular thing. Any aspects of it, some go to your feet, some go to your head. It is because this intellectualization of things that make us feel superior because we have a higher intellect, and make us feel the ones that talk about more lofty topics are better, but they're not really better. They're just different. In fact, there's one singular point, and that is every calypso that's considered great historically has one thing in common. That is a melody that we could remember, and people won't remember it. They keep forgetting that, it's the melody. Whether it's the sing-along melody of Trouble in Arima, or the sing-along melody of Federation, Gogina and Dinah. The melody makes us think, oh, because when you say, let's sing the calypso now, I have threatened people already, challenge them. Talk about these are good calypsos, sing it now. When they start the season, they have to sing it. They can't remember it. It has no value again because there's no melody to move you. I am greedy about this thing about melody. And maybe I could talk more about that afterwards, but the melody is gone from the calypso generally. The great melodies, there's some of them still there, but there's a frightening thing taking place in Trinidad calypso that we have begun to accept these very watery, melodious, less calypsos as good, as if there's nothing, as if by default, and we've seen it come up over and over, and people within calypso monarch and can't remember what they sing the next day because nothing to take. So, but that's my take on that.
Let me just ask something here. So we've spoken a bit about kitsch and Sparrow, and so you also mentioned Shadow, and Rudder. The mighty Chogdas, where does he fall in this spectrum?
Chogdas easily falls in the top 10 of any, how to say it in America, any good argument. In terms of the greatest of all calypsonians, Chogdas falls easily into the top 10. But Chogdas has never had a road match or even close to it. So my argument is that all styles of the calypso could make it big and fit. Now, I know Chogdas would say, nah, and he would decry the soca and the faster ones, but Chogdas' greatness is, twofold. In a culture based on a competitive thing, and this competition is so important to decide who better than who is to be honored, who is to be remembered, and so on. He has mastered the competition. Not him alone. I mean, there's Black Stallion, Crow, Sparrow, Duke, a number of calypsonians who they master the performance on the big night. But also because Chogdas has written many calypsos. They say he writes very quickly. And of course, I admire Chogdas also because he has, as a historian, he has written a few books well on the calypso. So he knows his worth. I'm not going to discuss his approach to calypso outside his style, because Chogdas never really accepted and appreciated what we now call soca. That musical innovation. He never accepted it from the very beginning until now. But I cannot. Well, I name my top 10 calypsonians, he's easily in the first 10.
Right.
And maybe to the end of the first 5, because he's up there.
Yeah.
I see what Chogdas has done is make his style powerful,
Yeah. Very unique, very unique, but very effective.
Yeah. People I know, as a writer in Trinidad, writes on the newspaper, who decries Chogdas as one of the people who has spoiled calypso, that made it boring. I'm saying, but no, Chogdas didn't give other people to sing that. He sang it himself. His style is his style. He mastered the style, right? And that's why he mastered the final night, the March Gras night, and he became good at what he's doing. Chogdas was in over 40-something finals. If I'm not wrong, I think it's 48 times he went to the competition, and I think it's only about 3 or 4 times he didn't make it to the finals. So his style worked for Chogdas, and his ability to inject humor into the most serious situations of the big night worked for him, right? But I'm not going to blame Chogdas for other things in calypso. There's so much other problems in calypso that beyond Chogdas. So Chogdas has my vote as one of the top 10 calypsos of all time. And the other time, I like Chogdas so much, I nearly get in trouble, When I was in 6-2, in class doing a free period, singing and dancing at Chogdas calypso. And the teacher next door said for me and threatened to tell, I could get you expelled, I could get you expelled for singing the calypso.
There are problems in the calypso in Trinidad and Tobago. There are problems with the calypso in Grenada and throughout the Caribbean. And a lot of the Caribbean also look to Trinidad for, if not guidance, but to have some sense of how the wind is blowing. So help us to unpack some of the problems you see with the development of calypso in Trinidad and the region, because I'm sure that you listen to calypso outside of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, well, we were the flag bearers. But as I tell somebody just a few weeks ago, this person is from St. Lucia, that I am not going to argue with anybody who says that in St. Lucia or in Grenada or in Barbados, the music that we now call soca was there before, and them kind of thing. We were just the flag bearers, because our calypso could go back into the 1800s. Go back even further. Some historians take it back even further. And I suppose we listen to Role, so we step off them slave ship, we start singing calypso. There wasn't calypso then. But we would begin to convert these African music, this minor key melody and so on, into what will later become Kaiso, Russo, Kalinda, Juba. Kalinda, of course, is the one that survived the best. Yes. That call and response. And so we were leading. But there's so much other input. One of the things we forget is about the input of the folk songs from the other islands. They're always there. And what happening is that people come in on boats and singing these songs. So right now, for instance, I haven't done a study on this, but I cannot tell you which folk song began in which island, because you take it for granted. It might be yours, whether it's Sly Mongoose, Bouncing Girl, and so on. But those songs, and as we know, it reaches its greatest moment when in Villa Sang Roman Coca-Cola taking a Martinican food from Leon Party and so on. So that the input from the other islands were always there. But we were different, whereas for whatever reason, right? I think Willa talks about that, about who was in Trinidad then. The amalgamation of different peoples in urban Trinidad back in that time. And because we were like the Mecca, the New York for music, people would leave Antigua, Grenada, Barbados, Guyana, and so on to come here, because that would be their greatest achievement, to be here to sing in Trinidad. Like long time people had to get to Harlem, right? To sing there. And now what happened is that as the thing changed, it changed with us. When we went to the up tempo soca, other countries pick it up also, even though they might have an inkling of that before. I'm not saying, because I was listening to a podcast a year before last year, and people were talking about cadence and different music coming from the different Caribbean islands, and what predate what, and some of them will say, but this music is since in the 60s, right, to the end of the 50s, it predates what we now know as soca, which was our 70s music. And some of those panelists were extremely good. They were not biased. They were saying, you can't discuss this without discussing that, and give Jackie jacket. But what seems to be, I was talking to Valentino a couple of years ago, and Vali says, he had come to one of those same Legends concerts to perform. And Vali said, but the place pack up, you say, it's not like Trinidad, and people like the Calypso. Because except for opening night in the Calypso tent, Judges night, and the Calypso Fiesta, Calypsonians sing before nobody, audiences of 8 and 10 and 15. When back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, they were before thousands. The tent was packed, 200-300 people. And when they come out of the tent and they go Arima, San Fernando, and 4,000 or 5,000 people, that gone, And these tents, normally the tents would open sometimes Boxing Day, sometimes New Year's Day. They're not open until this weekend, and most of them until the other weekend, because they could only sustain 3 weeks of weekends, because they're not even going during the week. They're just going Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
But I don't know that I get the impression, that in Grenada, for instance, what I seem to admire in Grenada is people is singing serious political topics with very catchy up-tempo music.
Yeah.
I had a collection by Beast a few years ago, 2022, 23, and I was amazed. I mean, the man ponging men in politics, but you could dance to the music. No, that was a thing by us at the time. 1979, Stalin sang Caribbean Man, but Caribbean Unity, and you could have danced to Caribbean Unity, Step Zimbabwe, right? Explain us doing, Rasta Chicken, then Wedge Red. Now, when you hear one of those, it is some measured, let me say, for it is boring melody. But I get the impression, and acting if I'm wrong, that in Grenada, for instance, they still have melodies that you could dance to and chip to, and
definitely. I mean, Black Wizard is a master of that. I mean, I don't maybe. I think probably Wizard's slowest Kaiso is probably Political Blight, but Wizard has and maybe that's only one. But Black Wizard is known for, I mean, serious social and political commentary, and I mean you're shaking your waist like if it's no, definitely.
But that came from Arrow and came from Swallow and came from Short Shit, and also, so I don't know. We had it at that time. I think we have lost that. I mean, Shadow is a different example. There's nothing that Shadow ever sing wasn't pulsating, wasn't moving. You either shake your head or you move your feet. Always like that. And he was unique. Right? I mean, I see Shadow was from some different planet. But by and large, outside the Sparrow era and so on, now we get into this younger couple of people who think that they, let me put it this way. Yes, now you are going to the Calypso Fiesta, the semi-final round. 40 Calypsonians, 40 Calypsos, 35 Calypsos, 36 Calypsos, Ajuga, 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 and some girls screaming on the thing. And where is the up-tempo melody or the sweet melodies, the one that, you could sit back and hum along with it. It has gone. And what is frightening about that is it's being accepted as what is good. Mm-hmm. And then there will come a time when we lose sight that there are sweet melodies out there that should be appreciated because we do know that it exists. Now, my theory on that is that the calypsos of the 60s came out of their melodies of America, that doo-wop scene and those pop songs that had, those little melodies. When they get to hip-hop take away the melodies and it's more to chant, which is good for hip-hop. But when it influenced calypso to the point where it starts losing its melodic beauty, I mean, when last we get things like what Kitchener was singing. Mm-hmm. So they exist still out there. Let me not say that they don't exist. I hear them every now and then. I hear these sweet melodies coming, but they don't get no special place in the people competition. And that is another issue that calypso went down that road a long time ago, 1939 to be exact. It started. And this road of competition, which tells you this is what you have to do because this is the competition format, the rubric for competition. And it has spoiled calypso, obviously, because without that, people will sing anything and they would appreciate it. I have seen in concerts and in shows and in the rum shops, people singing calypso that cannot get close to the semi-final, much as the final, and they mash it on the place, because there's appreciation for the calypso. But when you have to go to a competition, they say, this is what you must have. This is the style. This is the way it must go from point A to point B, which is another argument I have. And then the other thing, that foolishness that we have put on stage now, and I'm seeing it everywhere, that dance and skit and that play before you actually
the dramatization.
Mm. And 99% of them are just awful. I remember telling a judge once that if I were judging, when they come on, I would bend my head and put my finger in my ears until they're done. So I would not have to watch that stupidness and not to hear the calypso. and most of them put thing on stage. And anyway, I don't think that wasn't the query. That was the question. I jumped in to go other places, so I apologize. Let me get back home.
But that is the whole point. That is the whole point of discussion.
Okay. We're talking.
This is what the program is all about. We talking Kaiso, definitely. Mm-hmm.
So that we reach into the modern calypso, but we are talking particular individuals too, so that while we kind of understand where the calypso is, we also have to go back and go forward, right? So that we touch on Kitchener and Sparrow and others and so on. I want us to touch on again two South fellas, one from Lengua and the other one from somewhere in San Fernando, Maestro and Shorty, and their influence on the calypso. Yeah.
Listen, that is one topic that is still playing around, right? Our pension, and then I'm not saying that thing. I suspect that is a worldwide thing because for the last 2 decades, if I'm wrong, we have been having this stupid argument in American basketball about who is the GOAT. About LeBron and Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And I would never get into that argument because I find it is self-defeating. Why was he have a one? Now, we made that mistake in Trinidad when he wanted to get a one to discuss pan, and we pulled Spree Simon out of the hat and say, he's the inventor of pan. So a little later on, it wasn't possible. There's a whole movement there. And that when Spree Simon played the pan on VJ Day in 1945 at the end of the war, 45 or 40, say 45. He was actually playing an antenna pan that he got from Pan de la Bastide, Andrew Pan de la Bastide, which he got for 25 cents. Pan de la Bastide is the brother of All-Rounder and I suppose, uncle of Shirlene and Wanda and Hamidullah, etc. In fact, he's Hamidullah's father. Another good calypso. So when we come to Shorty and Maestro, we keep turning them together because we want to get into this argument about who contributed more, who contributed this, who made this. And there's a lot of fallacies inside there. So let me just talk about them a while. Maestro was the senior one, right? While Shorty was still playing about in Lengo with the Indian music, and in Manahamri and thing, and play and singing pop songs, Maestro was already into calypso. Maestro encouraged and introduced Shorty into calypso itself. Shorty was already in that other area, right? And they became friends. Now, Maestro was the master composer.
Yes,
He writes 50 calypsos a year. In fact, there's a fella from Laramine in Trinidad nicknamed Vush. He was the go-to man before Maestro. He would get 15, 20 calypsos, and calypsonians would flock down to Laramine to get calypsos from him. When Maestro came, he became the man. Princess Tongue became hot with people going to Maestro to get calypsos. And by the way, including Shorty. Not that Shorty always wanted Maestro calypsos, but Shorty recognized very early what Sparrow was doing. Sparrow realized that he could write calypsos, but to get an album, 2 albums a year, 24 calypsos, with the variety to make it not boring, to make it not, to make it fresh. He needed other writers. And for the beginning, Sparrow was using other writers, including, by the way, the very Maestro. And Shorty did that. So Shorty would take, he would get a battalion with him, he would go by Maestro. And we know the calypsos that Shorty took from Maestro. And so now we've seen a thing now by his grandchildren, especially in Ireland, as if Shorty used to give Maestro calypsos. Maestro wouldn't want a Shorty calypso, he writing 50 for himself.
Right.
And give it away. There's a rumor in Trinidad that in the Princeton competitions, Maestro would write 2 calypsos for each of the 7, 8 finalists. Mm-hmm. So the competition would have almost all his calypsos. Now, I suppose the question will be going to the question of how we get to soca. But I will just talk about that shortly, since we're talking Kaiso. Right? Calling the thing soca is one of the mistakes we made, because it created a whole new music in people's mind. Even though it took 20 years to get there. Right? Now, soca, soul, and calypso. These are some interesting tidbits. Nelson, who used to live in America, because when he migrated from Tobago, he was in the American Army, and he sort of like Sparrow. He would sing Sparrow songs in nightclubs in America and so on, until one night he in a nightclub waiting to go on stage, and he heard the crowd outside saying, "The king has arrived, the king has arrived." And when he going to see who it is, he sees Sparrow, yes? And had to explain how he's singing Sparrow calypso without Sparrow permission. Anyway, that's really half the story. So I want to say is that when he come home, as you know, he was also considered a foreigner. He didn't take part in our competitions officially. But when he came home, the fellas around used to tell him he's singing soul calypso because of the way he would sing it, his affectation, because he had this American, accent. I say I'm halfway a cafe because he still had the Trinity thing, Tobago thing. Mm-hmm. And he talked about it, he said, but when I come one day, I hear him talking about soca, but it's mine. I used to be singing soul calypso. Let me stop there and go on to Shadow. Shadow tells a story that Shorty came to him early 1970s and said, you taking this soul into the calypso, boy. I like that innovation, Let me stop there again. Kalam Gada talks about himself and other musicians, Ramajane, and playing the band, that studio musicians playing and having fun with the music and playing the calypso in disco style and funk style and soul style and thing. And Shorty passed. And like a good storyteller, Pelham just say, Shorty passed. The next year, Shorty did MS Vibrations. Now, I want to talk about, the influences, because we can't just start and do. My argument is that I give Shorty the highest pips for this new music, this musical form. But we can't assume, and we shouldn't assume, that Shorty was the only person thinking about this musical form should go in a different direction of making it more musical. Right? And I think that's unfair, because Maestro was doing it at the same time, even before, they were experimenting, getting rejected, trying all kind of things. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think that, in my opinion, and others' opinion too, that we don't give Maestro enough tips for the soca innovation with Shorty. Now, at the beginning, Shorty did used to give Maestro tips, but I suppose later on to consolidate it, that move. But we do give Maestro that honor for being there and making the music as a writer and so on. And I think it's unfair because now we know more. You hear in Maestro's little brother say, He's angry that people give Shorty all the ranks when he know Maestro pick up the guitar home and play the soca songs and give it to Shorty and say, try this. And the great Winston Joker Devines said on a Facebook page once, he say, you see all them soca songs Shorty do in the beginning? That's Maestro song, Yeah. Me say one thing. Me say nothing because I say it's Joker, and Joker know what you're talking about in a sense. Because Joker has never talk soca and say Maestro without Shorty or Shorty without Maestro. He always in calypsos and talk, put them together as the two pioneers. And you see, what we kind of miss there was the innovation of the times. It was the 1970s. The 1960s coming to the 70s. People were experimenting all over the world. It was the era of coming of rap. And coming to rap, so coming to disco, and so on. And people, that's why King Wellington doesn't get no ranks, but King Wellington attempted to re-energize the calypso in the very early 70s. In fact, some people say in 1969 he had written new calypso music. It didn't turn out to be the new music, but innovation. You could hear Shadow singing since 1972. Or 71. You listen to the bass, his music in the place, and that could be bacchanal for the carnival. He was going on that with this bass line and everything of that. Otherwise, Shadow has lamented his denial in the soca Hall of Fame, the soca Innovation Hall of Fame. Shadow had actually 4 calypsos singing about that.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I just had a note. Shadow soca boat. This man came in my house to fight me. He came in my house to beat me, Say he's the soca king. I can't deal with the soca thing. So, tell us about that.
Yeah, but that's the beginning. That's the first one. Now, I suspect, all right, let me put it another way. Kinte, we were talking about 5-6 years ago. Well, that's before we get locked down in this COVID thing. So it had to be a little while now. And you say you're going to organize a flight to Montserrat or St. Lucia or somewhere. And we're just talking calypso and soca and thing. And he make the statement to me. He said, why you think that there was no agreement about soca before the 31st of August 1977? And he didn't stand up there like a fool. I was studying, what the hell he mean? And when I went to him, I realized, I understood the reference. The 31st of August 1977, Maestro died.
Yeah.
And then man can't tell no tales. Right? So they put it there. So when that happened, Shorty in retrospect would say, it's mine. I can't visit him then because he was part of that whole movement.
Yeah. Right?
So I think Shadow, because Shorty had gone to Shadow and said, boy, you singing soul in the calypso. I said, I could do that too. Shadow felt that, listen, man, when they do the thing now, they leave me out. In fact, in 2001, somewhere there, when he won the Monarch, he won? What's wrong with me? He made that point again. He said, I come down from the hills in Lavantil and come down with my music, and they take it and call it soca and deny me my honor. He was still bitter about that. So when you get a soca boat, now let me tell you what I find interesting in soca boat, and unfortunately I'd never asked, and I don't know who know the answer. If you listen to soca boat,
Val know the answer.
In the beginning to the end of soca boat, there's a bass guitar played. It doesn't stop ever. I wonder if that was the arranger or Shadow's way of saying, take that bass in your tail, because the bass coming out of Tobago is what fuels my soca. Because Wellington had the same thing, right? Putting that extra bass in new calypso music, and then they thought putting it in Makati Party and those other calypsos he make.
So and brass, yeah.
And brass. I don't know if that shadow bass, because I've never heard a calypso put that prominent bass. In fact, when Shadow re-recorded that soca boat, that bass was as consistent or as powerful. So it was there, as if to say, my bass, which I sing in 1971, is what I think fueled that music. Now, you see the word soca come out of soul and calypso. And because he has to name it. Remember, Wellington called his own Russo funk. That is the funk influence, which the Veens has always said was an influence in the music. And Russo, the old-time calypso. But the soca stay. And the words stay. And King Luther will tell you over and over that was a real mistake in calypso. Because without soca as a word, he will still be singing calypso, fast, calypso slow, calypso up tempo, and calypso won't be dying because soca has taken it over. And people don't know that for 20 years we sang calypso with a soca, let me say with a soca beat. It didn't change the calypso. In fact, I have 200 calypsos with the word soca in the title between 76, 77, and 95, 96. According to Rada, calypso music is a sweet soca music. They didn't differentiate, you know. What was different was the rhythm, the beat, the musical thing they put in it. And now, because of the competition that began in 93, and then they get to hear this point, soca is a whole new thing. As if we can't sing political things with soca. And interesting enough, for the last 3 years, I have found about 15 calypsos talking about that and lamenting the fact that calypso could sing political things, soca can't. And I say, where them get that story from? One of the first big political calypsos ever in soca is Shorty singing Money No Problem, 1977. No problem. Greatest piece of music you can find. And it's heavily politics. I mean, why you get heavier than Steve Zimbabwe, right? Caribbean man, Maestro singing over yonder about South Africa, or these topics we're taking the music, but that's another.
Before we go, I mean, we definitely have to give credence to Shadow, that which is a fact that he was the first person who introduced a figured bass into calypso. Before that, they would give you 7 sheets of music, the horns and keyboard, guitar with chords and so on. But it is Shadow coming with bassman that Art Nikoto, who was the premier arranger at the time, now had to do a single sheet for bass. Previous to Shadow, that had never happened in calypso. So that and that moved into that dominant bass for the soca and so on. So that you just want to put that out there. That prior to the Shadow, there was no bass sheet in calypso music.
Okay. Yeah, my argument is, what I lament, we never should have gone down that road to find who is the man, the actual one person. So what we have in Pan? Haven't made the mess with Sri Simon. You go to the books and on the net, you hear now that the father of the modern steel band, the inventor of the modern steel band, Ellie Manet.
Modern steel band?
Modern steel band. That's because they know they make a mistake. That's like when a long time Chinese say, Columbus discovered Trinidad. And when they get boofed after the Black Power movement, they start saying, he rediscovered. It's as stupid as saying he rediscovered. So I'm saying, why do we have to go down an argument to find one person?
That's it, yeah.
Because, let me tell you what, Pelham makes the point in an interview I had with him the other day. Well, not I had with him. We were both on a panel, thing like this. And he made the point that, the arrangers don't get credit for this. I was talking on WAC radio once, and I was making a mention about how sometimes where it starts, where you know it, is not where it starts. And and especially the king of rock and roll. But do you know literature? And somebody called in and tell me about someone who was there before. I said nothing. And then I was talking about, and maybe I can't remember if it was Rapso, which was Lancet Lane, and then get teeth with Masimba and the rhythm band, right, and so on. And then somebody call in and tell me, what about the arrangers? And I don't know what about the arrangers. put in a plug for arrangers, the arrangers, Pelham and Lester and Company, and then lost the name there.
Edwardson.
Yeah, and the one from, not from Trinidad, the one to make all this mass, the arranger. Where is he from?
Frankie McIntosh?
Frankie McIntosh, right, Frankie.
St. Vincent.
We give them no credit. But remember, Edwardson who created Sugar Boom Boom, not Kitchener.
Yeah.
Kitchener. But more important, we give them no credit at all. But when you go to the arranger, and we know that Maestro had gone to Adikoto to rearrange in soca styling, I think it was the mix. Might have been the mix. Crazy Hall is Miller, Lyman by the library gone. I turned him down. Right? So the fact that Pelham, because they were young then, and Lester and Frankie and come took up the mantle. We don't give the credit to the arrangers of the soca music who make that music important. Right? Because, and in fact, you see all the different streams of soca. When you hear Shorty in the 70s and thing, you're not hearing Maestro. Maestro a most different kind of thing to it. Mm-hmm. I was listening to Mudada and saying that Mudada sounded just like Maestro, and then Kinte say, because it is Maestro. It's again forward never, backward never. It is exactly Maestro. So he had this stream, you have Shorty stream and Maestro and Shadow stream and then came Merchant and so on, making the input into it, and we could just leave it right there and say that movement that took place and give them fellas, the pioneers, their ranks. But we had to find one, and finding one, it isolates the others. And thanks to Winford Divini, never do that.
Right.
In his Calypso the Clash, he says, Calypso is talking to soca. Calypso says, I am wrong a long time when you were still in my show's gut for Shorty's psyche. Mm-hmm. Put them together one time. He never differentiated because in his mind, Maestro was the mastermind behind that music, not simply Shorty. And the more we know now, the more we realize they were. I mean, how you could get a fella, they live together in Royal Castle Sunday morning, writing music together, talking things together. Do you feel all that time they're talking? Shorty didn't know. I mean, Maestro didn't know what Shorty was doing. In fact, if you listen to what's his name? Tempo by Maestro. That dig he put there, I'm sure about Shorty, he said certain lunatics play Indian music.
Yeah.
That was Shorty thing. He always liked the Indian influence. So, but they were friends, and let me end this piece here. What Shorty was trying to do in Endless Vibrations was to up-tempo the carnival. Because we don't know that influence in Trinidad. I don't know about other countries. But in Trinidad, carnival just stopped what we were doing, which was soul music. I remember in 1973 carnival, I went to San Fernando, coming down the coffee, and the place black with about 200, 300 young people dancing in the street to James Brown music.
Yeah.
But based on the DJ. So we really wanted to keep going there. Carnival stopped me. So Shorty decided I could up-tempo this thing, I could make this thing more interesting, change the accent of carnival to a groovy festival. What Maestro wanted to do was to create a music that could play all year round, could bypass the 6 weeks of stranglehold. Right? And that's why he was going on that road before he died. I mean, Anatomy of Soca and so on. So they were going with two different goals, but doing the same thing. I mean, on the same journey. And they were friends, because they want to go down this avenue. And I see, I not going to listen. Before any of them play anything, by early 1970s, and I always make this reference. Funclair Seal Orchestra got the name Funclair because they were situated then at the corners of Fun Rose and Clare Streets. But when Funclair dropped Lou Donaldson's Caterpillar in that Calypso tempo, Juve morning coming down, and at the time they say Funclair had two traps set in the band to create this job beat, this soul, this rhythm and blues beat into the Calypso. It was mass, but that predates all all the other things, them was there before, them fellas was playing, before my show them, you know. But them didn't know they was doing anything with a name. They just know this music of soul is such a great influence. This James Brown, Cool and the gang, style, and the Family Stone. Them fellas was playing a kind of. In fact, some stupid fella was on Facebook the other day talking about playing pieces of other popular songs, and saying what these have in common. And he says what have is a 240 music, and then makes the mistake of playing Cloak and Dagger, which of course is my issue. Shorty singing, but it's my issue. And that's not the point I want to make. When you hear, you don't get the chronology right. When you hear Shorty sing Endless Vibrations, you are hearing the influence of rock the boat, baby, rock the boat. Yeah, hit me hard. He said the same thing because we were playing off of that. And that's not a new thing. Lion was playing the barbershop music in the Mills Brothers and so on. Lion was playing, you know, that chick to chick dancing that come out of the Fred Astaire movie and so on. Mm-hmm. And every junkie, you would do it. You hear Sparrow singing, she's been gone, much too long. He came from outside. When Sparrow didn't marry her, and the other one. The judges tell him, what that is? That's rumba, that's not calypso. And the commissioner tell him, stop playing them calypso song. We always want to get that influence because it is more pervading. Right? If for 9 months you're hearing the power of the music that comes from America, the soul music and so on, and then the disco and the other music. Right? In your 3 months, well, I mean, 3 months, Your 2 months, January, February, every time you get a March, we go on. You want to inject some of that thing into your music. And people want to do it all the time. You hear it here, there, you know. There's not like a pure calypso. What Rada says is correct. Rada says whatever we put in the mouth and chew up, when he spit it out is ours. Mm-hmm. But we're taking some cadence, we're taking some samba, we're taking something, and next thing we're singing it and you're hearing it says calypso. Yeah. And rightfully so. All right.
Yeah. I want to ask you one quick question though. Just to go back a bit. We've spoken about a number of calypsonians and their work. I just want you to just touch on the late Kelvin Pope, the mighty Duke.
Yeah. You know, the first time I heard Duke, I said, how that fella singing like Sparrow So Boy? I was too young. He was singing Carrera. That is correct, I think, but monkey know a tree to climb. Young thing, the young, the strong, the hearty pass. You saw all of them going in Carrera. That particular calypso. And then later I heard about Duke. And that sweet melodic way. I mean, Duke's music was so exciting. And his compositions. I think when Duke came from an era when you were creating dialogue in calypso. So I have written a couple of calypso musicals, plays using the calypso, and was able to use that thing in the play. In other words, one character takes one line from the calypso, and another character takes another line, because these people, like Duke, was singing a calypso in which there are several voices, 2, 3 voices, not one voice. Not the only I narrator that you have in some calypsos. There were different voices in the calypso. You listen to the streaking, freaking, and social bacchanal and so on. Mm-hmm. You can 2 people quarreling. And I think to me, that almost lost. So you hear it still, you know. People say it still. There are a few calypsonians now still with that style, but a lot of times we lose that narrating voice because we don't want to go down there. I think a lot of things going wrong with calypso. But one of the things that going wrong with it is that we let the competition control the narrative, control where we could take things. And all I say is when you hear fellas singing things that not in the competition and the way they sung, you know. So Duke became one of my people, and I started to buy all the Duke albums and things, and I realized this fella different boy, musical, and he could inject humor. You know, but what happened? Duke won the Calypso Monarch 4 times. Mm-hmm. And then Duke says they bring Sparrow back to take it from, to say 4 was too much. No. Duke and Sparrow could have easily exist, and they did exist in the same calypso world, why we have a competition to put one out? Because the competitive nature of our things, to me, is such a destructive thing. Because when you go outside, I listen to, say, 60s pop music. I know the Beatles very good. I never liked the Rolling Stones that much. But the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, and the Supremes existed in that same space comfortably. They don't have to put one out to exist. Now, we have this thing, right now, there's a thing going around here. Who better, Bonji or Marshall? Why you have to get a who better? And I think that is the problem that they put Duke in, unfair. Great calypsonian, in a sense, never get it. Well, he get it due. But, we tend to put people down because you want to put somebody better than them. When it shouldn't be. They have different strengths and different styles, and all right. As they say.
I know time does slip away very quickly here.
Yeah.
We only have fun. There's a present problem, and we kind of know about it. We talked around it this evening. But how do we find our way out of this present predicament? What kinds of solution? I mean, I know that they have in Trinidad, Chokdas has been recruited to train a number of judges. I don't know if they have ever come to Zeno Constance and say, hey, we want you to help us think. How do we find our way out of this present?
Listen, when I went as a witness for Kuku, that defamation case, the judge asked me, by the way, my neighbor, yes? I didn't know that then. The judge asked me, why are the tents empty then? Why is Calypso on this download? What is causing the problem? And I said, in one word, he said, what, I said, soca? No, I use soca, of course, as if it's a different music, and not a part of the Calypso. Right? I said, soca? No, soca is the problem for a lot of reasons. Younger people now have drifted into soca. I've always said that no generations hold a monopoly on talent. But the talent of the younger generation of the 50s and 60s that we introduced them fellas to them, like when you get to the 70s, and you get to Shorty, Maestro, Valentino, Stalin, extra, them were the younger ones taking over now. And as the era changes, they get to Super Blue, and so on. And 80s, and they get to Rada coming down. But the generation of talent as writers, not only as singers, performers, but as creators, they went into soca. And soca does not have a different reason for existing, but that it means to say that what could save Calypso is to move from the traditional 50s, 60s, 70s beat into the new beat. No, we did it before, We forget, if you go back to the 1930s, that radio put bonks into Calypso. Here's one called Is the Rhythm They Want. Right? And Unknown says radio was the first person to run up and down the stage. And they used to tell him, we are going, you want up left, you want back left. In the era when people put the mic down and sing in the mic, he went up and down the place. Right? And when we get to Sparrow, we see the change. I get to Kitchener, we saw that change when Kitchener bought this thing, whoop, 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 that kind of bonksy kind of thing in the Calypso. We were there before. And when we get to the 70s, we have all these Calypsos that this new soca beat. I use the word again for clarity. So now we get on to know, why are we not taking these Calypsos with a more modernized beat that the young people would like? Now, there, in very few. You know what is happening? It's happening in the reverse. The soca people is taking the Calypso, the old Calypsos, and energizing them. This year I found 11 of those songs. Kiss, Coca-Cola, Michael Teja with Last Train and so on. And we forget that Benjai was in the 2011 final, that Voice was in the 18 final, that Teja was in the 2024 final, that Olatunji was in the semi-final in 2023, I think. I'm talking about people who established themselves as, in the soca business. Jump into the Calypso. And not jumping like young brother jumping by singing traditional calypso style, but singing the very thing that was making merry in the parties. Right? So we have to get to that level. I think Chuck Gordon tried something, called it jiggy calypso. Try to up-tempo it. No, there's nothing wrong with Nelson and Valentino and Chuck Dust and company with the old style of fellas in the 80s, right? In the 90s, are talking about you're young, you're not coming in calypso business. Why are you singing these? Why you can't inject the new thing? Listen, Nadia Barson, who is one of the tune splits of this era.
Oh, she's great.
Always, I don't know where she gets it from.
She's great.
If she finishes in the bush, or she go by the yoga man. But Nadia has a calypso called Skinner Park. And I use it as an example of the chasm that we have created. Skinner Park never make it big as a calypso because the calypso people say, that is soca. And the soca people say, that is calypso. But it's one... It's a calypso about going to Skinner Park.
Soca is soul calypso.
That is the problem. We don't want to take up the modern soca. I mean, who is more metaphorical and lyrically powerful than Bungie? The last 4 or 5 years, Bungie put along some things that I am amazed at the kind of lyrical quality. But we don't consider that. We wouldn't consider, going that kind of music and going to the competition and trying to re-energize the calypso. It will start slow. You might get out of the 40 in the semi-finals, you might get 4, then 10. And then soon, that will be the new music for the young generation that will take the calypso because that music could take all the commentary, social and political, of the times. I know it because the calypsonians who do it for a while, right? With that up-tempo thing. It could take it. It took it before, back in the 70s and the 80s. It could take it now. But I think the competition has put that gap because there's a soca monarch and there's a calypso thing and the two should never meet kind of stupidness. And, Super Blue, I forget Super Blue, all them finals Super making in the 90s and the 80s with songs that were so soca, right? They were on the road.
Yeah, definitely.
They were in the party. And since when we get to the point where our party calypso cannot be in the semi-final or the final? Since when? And Sparrow was singing all of them. Sparrow sang them all them party calypso.
When he came back with, was it Do Back, you want to come with that? I mean...
I don't know, I'm not sure, but those are powerful things.
Yeah.
And they could do it.
Both of them. You want with both of them, not the back. The back was the road match, both of them.
Iowa have a thing they say called licks. Well, that's a real calypso, Serious commentary, making a real point. No, I want to go and sing a no calypso competition. I suspect not. But that is the kind of thing I'm talking about. When you go create that kind of melodic lines. And them fellas who make any melody now, them fellas good at what they're doing, Fellas make the point in that discussion that them young fellas, that's what you're talking about, what is it name? Voice. And no, but especially them behind the scene, but they want full blown.
Full-blown.
And company. Them fellas ain't no music,
Yeah,
they fellas have a laptop.
Yeah.
And Pelham say, that's a new thing. He said, no, he had to learn F and B flat and G minor and think them had to learn nothing. Them fellas created that music out of a different place, which is why I don't understand the argument about AI. Because the minute you pick up the first laptop and you start to take music from or you're tuning to auto-tune on them thing, you're done using AI. The AI didn't start last year. It got a name. But it will be all the time. People always trying things. And in any event, some things will never be kept on back. That is the future. I am making the point about calypsos using AI since 2-3 years now. I'm hearing them, and I tell my friends and my calypso partners, hey, they're for steal of the internet, They say, no. Until I try today, I have a friend who had AI, and I say, she asked AI, I want a calypso based on Bob Marley's No Woman, No Cry. Within 10 seconds, whoosh, up it comes.
Yeah.
So when they make it, they're there. So to stop the AI, they can't stop and you have to decide. Well, not you have to decide. The Calypso Association has to decide. How will I know when a man take it from me? They missed the last few. 2 years gonna hear in the AI Calypso. And they went to finals. So they missed that. Right? And Brother Resistance was on paper trying to say they used to work hard to try and see a Calypso being presented wasn't an old song, an old melody. And in fact, Explainer, and now I know Andrew Williams, they go around to all the competition, auditions, and tents, looking to see if anybody singing over Old Kitchener. It's difficult now when you have Suno and all the different chat GPT and AI and things like that. We'll give you a song, we'll give you a melody. Right? I feel like that here NCW make a whole album. Right? I mean, with AI music, and they vex with him, they say that like fighting against the machine. Well, if you could accept that full-blown fellas could know the music and create all these brilliant melodies and these brilliant songs, that is an era that gone when you had to know if A sharp from A minor, you had to know that again, just creating and it's melodious. Right? So I really wanted to follow Nadia but to see if she just go by a woman or somewhere in the bush because she can be creating these melodies that sweet. I suppose there's a worse reason because I mean they say she come out of Andre Tanka when she was young, his influence and other things. So she probably had that in she. But you hear too many soca melodies that are so beautiful. Let me the last one I'm going to make on this point. In 1997, when Marshall did Music Farm, I found that music, that injection in the little Jamaican thing in it was so sweet, so melodious. Music Farm. That when I went to school after the carnival, Ash Wednesday, I told my classes, the future to come to school, take that thing and put new lyrics to it. We can't waste all that music on some girl from Claxton being named Key in a Music Farm. And I remember one fella write a whole thing about slavery on that melody, right? Because it there, right? So if you could create all these soca melodies that's so sweet, why we can't calypsos that melody that have nice melodies, right? I mean, you hear Valentino singing something, the thing's so sweet, so melodious. Me and Valentino, we want to hear this thing with people crying and shouting into the thing. I don't know if I was judging them, I get them not.
Yeah, I know.
All right, I just put it on the side. Yeah. But I think to answer that way go. We have lost that thing. We have lost touch with the people between 10 and 25, that generation. And they go there and they take part, but there's a disconnect. A lot of juniors singing calypso, but they're not really into calypso. They're into music of soca.
Right.
And we need to catch that generation and say, soca is not a new thing, it is ours too, and we could sing it. I mean, the end they say, Bonji have a calypso he did last year, come away name. But it's the exact theme as Maestro singing his 1977 calypso, Improving. I don't know about your name, but it's the same thing, man. That the more you put up pressure on me, the more I will improve. Mm-hmm. The exact theme in two different rhythms, two different
vehicles to carry. Right. Yeah, definitely.
Let me keep quiet now because you know you got to put me out just now.
Well, actually, we're out of time. It's 10 o'clock. Yeah, we're actually out of time. And I could sit and listen to you. I mean, definitely we will be having you back because there's so much to talk about. So much of the old greats, and I would like to chat more on some of the greats and their work. We touched a bit on Kitch. We touched on Sparrow. Shadow, Duke. I would like us to touch on fellas like the Black Stallion and some of the other greats, the Blakeys and so Cypher, and their work, because I think it's very, very important to understand where we came from, considering where we are now. And
then they might touch on the Grenada influence on Trinidad Calypso.
Well, of course. So there's a lot to talk about. So I think this is the discussion. that can continue next week, so we can, if you are available, we'd definitely like to continue that next week, so we could touch on that, because I know we have influenced the Kaiso in Trinidad in a significant way. The mighty bomber,
I have listed a dozen Calypsonians who came from Grenada and got big in Trinidad, and there's a dozen who are second generation.
Right.
Ella and Iowa and Super. All them parents come from Grenada. Mm-hmm. So the first generation, a dozen, and a whole set come afterwards.
Yeah.
Because Grenada was, the gateway coming to us, and they became big and they influenced the Calypso here. But that's another story for another time. So let me hush now and say thank you very much, gentlemen.
Definitely.
It was good. I could take my leave now.
Yeah, well, of course. Thank you so very much. It was indeed a pleasure. We've learned so much. Yeah. So your final words. Tell the people, as we leave.
That's me or that's
you.
That's you. I'm about to say it past my bedtime, so I better get in now.
Yeah.
But no. What happens is that you can call me anytime because I could just keep talking Calypso, so I don't need to research it.
Definitely.
Because that writing I've done, I have a whole shelf of all the Calypso books I can find, looking to see the knowledge I could get. So I no problem. You could talk for much as they want about Calypso and all the things.
That's the point of the program. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure. We look forward to continue this discussion next week. Val, you're up.
Yeah, well, it was a pleasure to be on the first program for the season once again, to have Zeno on set, because I felt this is how we should start. And I know that his thesis in terms of Valentino we haven't even gotten to, so that's another thing. And so it's great that he is willing and ready to come on again.
Yes.
A really good session. I could just sit and listen, and I did that most of the time. So thanks a lot.
Yes,
okay, no problem.
Coming on board, we really appreciate it, and we hope to see you again. Yeah.
Yes.
I will tell them also. That's no problem.
Thank you, all the best. Thank you, folks. That's all the time we have. And of course, again, you can join us tomorrow, the first week culture for the year. Be sure to join us. It is going to be exciting. So we look forward to that. Until then, do have a good night. All the best. Hey, everyone. Here is an invitation.